As I said, we've spent over almost $21 trillion in the past 50 years to eliminate poverty, but we've not eliminated it. But poverty is not something that is merely a reflection of how much money you have or don't have. Poverty, more than anything, is not the poverty of money. It sometimes is the poverty of soul. Moral poverty, I'm convinced, is a far greater poverty than simply the poverty of money. Some of the happiest people I've ever known in my life were people that didn't have a thing, but they loved God and loved other people. They were the kind of folks that if your house was blown away in a tornado, they'd be the first there. Even if their house had been blown away, they'd be there to help put yours back together. That's God's applause, by the way. You must like it. As a kid growing up, it was clear to me that if I was going to live a different life than the life I'd experienced growing up, that I'd have to work hard in school. I didn't want to escape so much what my family was, because I've never been ashamed of my family. To this day, I'm proud of my father, who only knew one thing, and that's heavy lifting and hard work. That's what he knew. Like so many of your fathers, my dad was a man who worked with his hands and got his hands dirty, and he never, no matter how hard he tried to scrub them, he never could quite get them clean. It wasn't that they were dirty, the stuff just wouldn't come out of his hands. Some of you understand what that means. Now, some of you will also understand this. The only soap we ever had in my house growing up as a child was lava soap. Anybody know what that is? For those of you who are the uninitiated or the more sophisticated, let me try and explain it. I was in college before I found out it isn't supposed to hurt when you take a shower. I'm not ashamed of my father. I'm not ashamed of the hard work or the fact that he sweated through his clothes every day he ever went to work. Because if it hadn't been for his work ethic and for his sense of understanding that, look, son, I can't help that you're poor, but by gosh, you're going to school clean. Every year, I'd start out school with 2 pair of jeans. By the spring, we'd be patching the knees. By summer, we cut them off at the knees, and those were my summer shorts, and I wore those until August and hoped that I didn't grow too much, because I wasn't getting any more until September when I went back to school and got 2 new pair of jeans, and that's how it went. I wouldn't trade anything in this world for the life I had as a kid, because I didn't have a whole lot, but this much I had. I had a family who understood that America is a great country to live in, and that America is a great country to live in because it understood that it was created by the providence of a great God. I want to remind you that it was 50 years ago that we launched a war on poverty, but it so happened to coincide with 51 years ago when the Supreme Court issued a war on faith and family in this country by saying that we couldn't pray in our schools, that we couldn't have the Bible and devotional reading that I had experienced as a kid. And sometimes we wonder, how come we haven't seen a dramatic change in the poverty rate? It's because while the government was spending $21 trillion redistributing money, trying to think that somehow that would change the culture, at the same time, the same government was making decisions that systematically has taken faith from the public square and almost made it as if we're supposed to be ashamed of taking a stand for God as public people. When I was governor, there was a time I went to a science fair over in a junior high school, and then I was supposed to go to an elementary school to do a reading up in Springdale, Arkansas. The science fair ran a little late, and I hurried over to the elementary school I was supposed to read. It was reading week that week in the state. The principal met me at the door, hands wringing. She said, "Oh, Governor, I'm glad you finally got here. The kids are all anxious, and they're down there in the classroom." And I was a few minutes behind schedule because of the other event. So we hurried down to the classroom where I was supposed to sit and take a book and read to the first graders at the George Elementary School in Springdale, Arkansas. Well, I went in there, and of course the kids were all sitting on the floor, all ready to be read to by the governor of the state. They handed me the book that I'm supposed to read to the kids, and they had one of those little first grade chairs there. I'm supposed to sit in that right in front of them. I thought that's going to be fun, not getting in, but getting out. Well, I sat down there, and I didn't want to just start reading the book without having a little conversation with these first graders. So it was just about a week before Halloween, and I thought, well, I can ask them about what they're planning and maybe what their parents are thinking, not a few days before the election after that. And so I said, well, kids, let's just find out what are your folks talking about at your house? Lovely open-ended question to ask first graders. And all the kids started waving, and they wanted to be recognized. So one after another, I'd ask them, and they'd answer me and either tell me what they were excited about, Halloween, or one little girl on the front, and she just had her hand up, and she was giving it this. I've never seen such energy, and I thought, my goodness, I wonder how long she can keep that up. So I asked every other kid but her. I just went around and just to see. I know you think that's cruel, but I was just amazed. This kid was just... So finally it came to her. I found out later her name was Ashley, and so I finally said, yes, sweetheart, what did you want to tell me? And I thought with energy like that, I'm thinking she's going to say, I just want you to know my mother thinks you're the best governor we've ever had. Well, wishful thinking, because that's not what it was. When I called on her, I said, yes, sweetheart, what did you want to tell me? She looked at me with a very serious look, and she says, we're already late for lunch. You see, as it turned out, Wednesday was corn dog day at George Elementary. And the fact that the governor of the state was there to talk to that first grade class meant nothing whatsoever to her. What mattered was she had a corn dog in the cafeteria waiting and didn't want it to be cold. Would I please hurry, read the book, and let's get to the cafeteria, to the important stuff. My staff made fun of me for months after that about, you thought you were a big deal. You're no bigger than a corn dog. You're nothing. But I'm going to tell you something. Here's what I learned from that little girl. And I've said many times, and I say here as I close today, I would to God that every little girl in America, the only thing she had to worry about in her future was whether or not she was going to have a corn dog and whether it would be cold. My friend, there's a lot of things I worry about for our kids today. I worry about where they get into substance abuse. I worry whether somebody will abuse them. I worry whether somebody will hurt them. I worry whether somebody will exploit them and mistreat them and treat them as a disposable, expendable, useless trash rather than the treasure that God has made them to be. I worry about those things. But I pray that over the next 50 years in this country, rather than just having a war on the poverty of one's pocket, we would declare a war on the poverty of America's soul, and that our kids would have nothing more to worry about than whether or not they got a corn dog. Thank you, and God bless you.